Welcome to the Developing Life Podcast. Welcome to the Developing Life Podcast. Today, we are privileged to have Jing Foon Yu, an innovator in design and a poignant voice in literature, whose personal journey and professional endeavors converge to redefine creativity. Jing, the author of Crybaby and an acclaimed designer, delves into the realms of feminism, diversity, and inclusion through her multifaceted career. She is known for leading transformative workshops that engage and empower communities, further demonstrating her impact in leadership. Her poetry book, Crybaby, reflects a raw and vulnerable exploration of generational trauma and inner child healing, blending her artistic and emotional insights with deep storytelling. A work that not only embodies Ying's spirit, but her commitment to emotional and social healing. With our host, Heather Crank, Ying will unpack the complex layers of her experiences, from navigating burnout and therapy to finding resilience in high-performance careers, sharing how these elements shaped her perspective on leadership and design. A conversation that will be sure to inspire the courage to create, reshaping the way we apply creative thinking to reinvent our own context and character.
Thank you, True. Welcome, Jing. It's so nice to have you on the podcast.
Hello, Heather. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So I met you in Christo's Future Pro group. Was it 2 or 3 years ago now? And we were in this cohort together, and I've gotten to know you over the years, and you are a passionate feminist. You like to advocate for diversity and inclusion. My first question right off the bat is, how does this show up in your life and work?
Well, that's a deep question to start out with. Well, to be honest, I think one of my first art project when I was in high school was about using condoms, actually. It was literally, I think I was 16, and I made this whole poster campaign about safe sex. And then I went to college and I started working, and all my activists, this person, I think it snowed under. I worked for commercial companies, I worked for finance companies, for publishing companies, for ad agencies, a very short stint, and for design companies. And it wasn't until I went back to study graphic design at the Royal College of Art that I actually started, when they gave me briefs, I automatically started to do projects that are social relative or talk about the rights for people in general, or so my activist muscle was stimulated during college. But then again, after college, I started working again full time, and still it was gone. And it wasn't until I think it was literally I was awakened again during a conference that I was technically hosting for a DIY leadership lady here in the Netherlands. It was a 2-day conference. And it wasn't until then that she actually shared so much knowledge. And I was behind the scenes, right? I was behind the scenes helping her out and making sure that everything went okay for her. But while doing that, I listened to her stories, and I listened to her identify how you can see exclusion or microaggression.
Right.
And then I was like, oh my God, she's talking about my experiences. And that was a pivotal moment for me to say, okay, I've done all these social activists relative projects in my spare time or during college. But why don't I do this at work? And if I would do that at work, how might these look like? And so I slowly, project by project, I pivoted, as in, how can I get my work to be social, engaging, and relative for community, for the people, for women? Um, and that's actually where I'm now. So now I actually even say on my website, I say, if you have a project that is not for people and for planet, don't call me. I literally say it out loud. I say, don't call me. Please don't call me. Call me only when you have a project that's that benefits the greater good. So that's how I actually pivoted. And now this year, because I realize that the position of women in general hasn't gone better, actually. From the feminist wave actually went up, and I think it's going down the last couple of years. And so for this year, I'm just keep telling to the universe and to my project clients to say, hey, I would love to do projects for or about women. I'm specifically interested in women's health because of my own journey. Do you have anything that you can send my way? So that's what I'm loosely asking and saying it out loud. Yeah.
So for people who aren't familiar with what feminism is, can you give me your definition?
Oh, so I'm not a scholar. I'm a designer. So my personal opinion about this is that women should have equal rights as male. So whether it's about production rights or your health, your mental health, whether it's about wages or where you live or what work you do, is actually, it's all encompassing that, because I believe when women have equal rights, society benefits. That's what I believe.
Love that. So you're in Amsterdam and you're now running your own business. How did you transition into being an entrepreneur?
That's a great story, actually. So when I started graphic design, that was my second study, so second bachelor program. So that's because when I worked as a junior designer and didn't know shit. So I ran into all these problems that I could not clarify or justify my design decisions. So I went back to school. So I'm like, okay, so I need to go back to school. So I studied at night doing my graphic design bachelor. And when I finished, I thought, well, now I know everything about design, right? So I started working, and I started working in several companies. And the last company that I actually worked as an employee was a financial company in the heart of the financial district in Amsterdam. And I remember that there was one day when I actually walked in there, and that my colleague at the communications department actually was ready for me, and he gave me this brief, a typed up A4 white paper brief. And he hands me this brief and he says, okay, this is the brief for today. I want you to read it and to make exactly what it says there. Don't you come and ask me any of your difficult questions.
Wow.
Just go and make it, and I'll see the result at 5 o'clock. And I was like, you're kidding, right? I mean, oh, that's such a good joke. You almost had me. And so I was like, so I have a question about this brief. And he went like, no, you're not giving me more of your difficult questions. I'm so fed up with your questions. I want you to just go back to your desk and sit down and just do it. Everything you need is on that piece of paper. And I went like, wow, you're really not kidding. So he was really not kidding. So I walked back to my desk And I sat down. So we were on the 23rd floor. It's one of the highest buildings in the financial district. It was a clear day. Clouds were passing by. So there was nothing going on except, so my colleague asked me not to think anymore. That's how I interpret it. If I can't ask any questions, I'm not allowed to think. And I also knew that he got a promotion. So after the Christmas holiday, he was going to be my boss.
Oh.
So that means literally, how do I see my future in this company if I were not allowed to ask any more questions?
Mm-hmm.
So I sat down and I thought, and I thought, and I thought, I'm like, if I learned anything
Mm-hmm.
at the Royal College of Art, was answers don't get me much further. It's questions where you actually it will pique your interest, your curiosity. It will actually make me a better designer. The questions make me a better designer. So what does it mean if I'm not allowed to ask any questions anymore? So I go like, oh, okay. So I didn't know what to do. Didn't finish the brief, by the way. Went home and slept on it. And the next day I handed in my resignation letter.
Wow.
And since then, I actually I call myself a strategic design facilitator, and I ask difficult questions for a living.
Oh my God, I love it. I love it.
Yes.
So that whole really difficult experience actually was the ignition for your new career and what you're doing
Oh,
now.
yes, definitely. Because
Mhm.
that discussion or the non-discussion I had with my colleague at the time taught me two things. One, apparently I was not capable in explaining what the added bonus was of design.
Mhm.
So he only saw it as a wrapping paper
Mhm.
tool.
Mhm.
And so I didn't know how to communicate the value of. So that was one. And number two is because he actually told me not to ask any more questions, I never realized how questions are important for me as a person to
Mhm.
develop, to
Mhm.
make better decisions,
Mhm.
to, yeah, well, actually do anything in life, right?
Mhm.
So I actually value it much more than before because before that it was granted.
Mhm.
It's normal that you can ask questions, at least, well, sometimes, at least in this world where
Mhm.
I live in, it's normal.
Mhm.
But the minute that people are telling you not to do it anymore, you go like, hey, what's the value of those questions for me? What does it mean if I can't ask questions or can't ask any questions?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, it's true. When you're asking questions, you're in that process of learning and discovery,
Mm.
and versus having all the answers, you kind of stop growing.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
So that's basically what I thought to myself. I went like, I think I have a good set of brain or head on my shoulders. Let's use it, right? Let's use it. So how can I use it? So from that point on, I started doing courses in design thinking, in design sprints, in
Mhm.
facilitation, because
Mhm.
I also realized graphic design, most people saw it as the last end of a whole process.
Right.
And all the strategic decisions are made way up the line, not down the line. I was down the line. Graphic design was seen as the last stop
Mhm.
before it went to market. So I decided that if I want to make sure that I was happy with the content as well, not only the wrapping paper,
Mhm.
I should move up the line.
Mhm.
So up
Mhm.
the design process where actually ideas are being formed or tested or thought of or so that's what I did there.
Okay. So if you're running your own business, how did you end up in the Future Pro Group? What were the steps that led to connecting with Christo?
Ah, actually I was looking for so I just started right without knowing anything.
Oh, wow.
I did some freelance work, so that was good. So after college, I did some freelance work. So and so I had small clients. So when I actually stopped my employment, I already had a couple of freelance clients. So I just
Mm.
I went like, I'll just pick it up from there. I was in a privileged position. Let me say that first, because I had some savings in the bank, and my husband was working a full-time job in employment as well. So there was no financial stress at that point. So it allowed me to see what I could do, and allowed me also to find courses or things, or talk to people to see what I was interested in. But I also realized I studied design, not business. So how do you run? Exactly. I mean, how do you run your own company, right? I had no idea. So I was just like winging it or pretending that I knew. And so I roamed YouTube and Googled to see, okay, how do you actually make a proposal, or how do you actually get clients? And I saw a couple of, most of the time there were dudes, to be honest. The most of the time the people are talking about business are dudes. But Chris was the first one on the intersection of design and business. And for me, he was also a role model, because he was also the first Asian person I saw talking about this. And there are not many people talking about design and business at that time when I actually found Chris. I think about 4 or 5 years ago. And also for me, it was a plus that he was Asian, because I go like, hey, there's a guy who looks a little bit about me, very little bit. He's Vietnamese, I'm Chinese heritage. And I like the way what he says, and how he brought it. So I joined a pro group, and it was a very warm, welcoming community.
I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're in Christo's group, and then you posted this quote online about burnout, and I'm just going to read it, a little bit of it to you, and then I would love to hear how you felt going through this, and sort of your reason for posting this. So you posted, I've already had 2 burnout episodes before I was 32. Went to a coach when I was 40, and have had a therapist for the last 5 years or 6 years. It took all this, a depression, and 46 years before I learned what it was. So can you speak to that a little bit?
At first, a big sigh. Yes. Yeah, why did I post it? I actually posted that on my birthday.
Oh, you did?
I did. I did. I posted it on my birthday because I turned 47 this year. And I think I was almost wasn't on socials that much last year. And also when I went, so last year I had a big depression. I went through a big depression, took about 1.5 years, and I posted very, very little on LinkedIn. So I only posted a couple of things on my Instagram, but on LinkedIn, most people didn't know about it. And I was scared. I was scared to post it on LinkedIn, because I went like, okay, on LinkedIn are the people that I work with. What would these people think of me? And what would they say? And would they still hire somebody who confessed to have burnout and depression? And then I went like, so for the longest time, I didn't write anything about my state of mind, about my mental health on LinkedIn for a long time. And then on my birthday, I woke up at 7 a.m. and I went like, this is it. I mean, this is who I am. I can't claim to be this whole, always chipper, always smiling person. I'm not only that person. I'm also that person, but there's also a deeper, darker side of me that most people don't know of because I wasn't willing to share. I wasn't comfortable in sharing. The good thing of reaching the age of 47 or 40s in general, I don't know if other people actually recognize this, is that I start to care less about what other people think. So, um, you know what? I'm just gonna blurb it out. I'm just gonna say it. Yeah.
So, okay, so we're going to start there. And then I'd like to move into, so you post online, you're being vulnerable for the first time, and you're also working on this book called Crybaby. And Crybaby, from what I understand, is more about your personal history. And as you write about it, generational trauma. So I'd like to talk about why you wrote Crybaby, what you hope to get from putting this out into the world, and um, what you would like other people to understand specifically about you.
First of all, I was never ever planning to write a book. But when I broke down like hard, I reached, I don't know what level. My house has a -1 level. I think I reached -10 level.
Wow.
And the only thing that I could do was like just lay down, just on a sofa, on bed. I didn't do much. And suddenly I got like all these words bubbling up in me. So the thing is, I grew up in the Netherlands. So I speak Dutch with my kids and with my husband, or Dutch Chinese with the kids. At least I try. And but the words that came bubbling up in my head were all English words.
Wow.
And I've tried to ignore them for a couple of days, and somehow they wouldn't go away. And there was more coming. I felt it was this like overflowing well. So I remember distinctively asking myself this question, or it's the choice. And when like I remember that I gave myself the choice. Am I going to ignore this and lock it away and pretend it's not there? Or am I going to write it down? And I felt the words that were coming up were really dark or terrible words that I wasn't even let myself allowed to think these words, let alone write them down. But on the other hand, not writing them down and ignoring them and locking them away as good as I could, I felt that was even the more darker choice. So I wrote them down. But literally how I wrote it down was I grabbed a book, just a ordinary sketchbook. I wrote them down, turned the page, and closed the book. I did not reread them because I felt them the worst. So awful, so awful, so hurt, so depressing, so yeah, how do you say it? Not evil, but really like dark thoughts. And I judged myself for it. I judged myself for thinking these thoughts, writing these words, writing them down. But still, I kept going. So every single time something bubbled up, I wrote them down, turned the page, closed the book. And I kept going. And it took me about like 3 months. And I wrote about 200 poems. And I still haven't read them by that time because there was just too much. You know, how I don't know if somebody else could relate, but sometimes it's very difficult to hear yourself or see yourself on television or on camera or whatever we're doing now.
Yes.
And it's even worse for the deep, dark thoughts that I wrote down. It was that bad. So I wrote them down. I didn't look at them. And then actually I sent one friend, because a friend of mine, she's a poet. So I sent one friend of mine, I sent her one poem. Just one, the first one that I wrote. And she immediately texted back and she goes like, "Where's the rest of the book?" And I go like,
Wow.
"Book? Whoa." I was like,
Wow.
no way in hell am I gonna make a book out of this. That's what I told myself. Because I go like, what do you mean a book? Who wants to read this depressing shit? I mean, it's very depressing. I mean, you're not gonna read this book for kicks or for laughs or for joy. It's not. It's not a warm, lovey-dovey story. And so, so book, you're being ridiculous, I said. So I ignored it. But then in my head goes like, I remember asking myself the question, the what if question. What if? What if? What if I would make a book out of this? How would that look like? And I gave myself the permission to walk around with that thought, with that question. What if? What if I show one other person a poem? Well, what if I start showing just one person, one other person? And I was still not very convinced about it, so I did show it to another person, and he was English, so that's a native English speaker. And for me, it was one way to check whether these poems made sense for English speaking people, since I'm not a non-native. And he said, "Wow, you sent me these at 11 o'clock at night, and they're so disturbing. I couldn't sleep anymore."
Oh my
So I
God.
was like, "Oh, I'm sorry about that, but how's the English?" I went like, "What do you mean? How's the English? Your English is fine." Oh, I was like, "Okay." I didn't know if it really translated well in my poem. So I walked around with this question, what if, what if? And I finally picked up the book by Brene Brown, and it's called Atlas of the Heart. And there she maps out all these different emotions that we have. And I looked up shame because I felt so much shame around this topic, like cruciating much shame around this topic. And I looked up shame, and Brene Brown, the wise Brene Brown, said, shame develops and gets bigger if you want to ignore the topic, if you try to hide the topic, if you try to pretend it's not there, then shame is only getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The antidote to shame is to give it light, to give it air, to show it, to tell people about it, to actually just to literally give it light and air. And I'm like, oh wow. So I had this book on my lap. It's a very heavy book. And I reread what she wrote, and I'm like, shit, what does this mean? Well, I know for one thing, I'm already feeling heavy because of the shame that I'm carrying around. And according to this expert, it's only getting bigger if I don't do anything about it. So I went like, okay, what does she do say that I need to do? And I went, okay, for me, it meant I'm going to just start sharing it on Instagram, on my Instagram profile. And that's what I did. I started posting things on Instagram, which still felt really small to me. It's a small group of people who react, so it still felt relatively safe. But from that one point on, every single time I wasn't sure, I let myself walk around with a question, what if? And then I see myself fantasizing about how it might look like, or what paper would I use, or what colors, or what illustration would go with that poem, and suddenly, after a whole lot of what if questions, there's this book.
Wow. Wow.
And suddenly I have got a book. Well, it's not suddenly, but it still feels like surreal that I actually made a book out of these very dark, personal, emotional poems.
Do you feel now that you've published this that some of the weight of the shame has come off?
Yes,
Mm.
yes. Because the thing is, I can talk to people about it now better.
Mhm.
It's not easier, definitely not. I mean, I'm still traveling around with my uh custom tissue box of Crybaby, but it's not easier, but I made it lighter for
Mhm.
myself because
Mhm.
I put it in a book.
Mhm.
And also because of the courage that I had in sharing it
Mhm.
somehow, and I trusted to the pages, and um also I let the designer and the illustrator in me
Mhm.
play with it,
Right.
so that makes it lighter. But because beforehand play was never to be found near the diary that I had. But the moment that I actually decided to publish stuff online, I started making illustrations or animations to go with them.
Mhm.
um so it's I somehow there's a sense of humor crept in,
Mhm.
although these things are still very dark and very heavy.
Mhm.
But well, at least for me, there's a sense of lightness to it
Mhm.
now, which makes it bearable.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I had a friend once who used to tell me, you have to have, or you don't have to, but it's a good idea to have tea with your inner monsters and make friends with them,
Yeah.
uh, because they want to be seen as much as
Yes.
you want to hide them. Um,
Yes.
I think that's such a beautiful illustration of that. And I love the playfulness that you brought in with the illustrations. I think with just the writing, it's very beautiful, but very intense. And
Mm.
the illustrations give it this whole different expression. And it's so beautiful.
Thank you, Heather.
I
That means
just love
a
it.
lot.
I
That
love
means
it.
a lot when you say that. Yeah. Because the thing is, this book was such a, I don't know, there's probably a word for it, an all-encompassing total design project,
Hmm.
because I wrote it, I designed it, I illustrated it, I published it. So it's this crazy spin that you're in, being this uh yeah, really a total design project that actually I couldn't let go. And somehow when I finished the book, it was just only the beginning. Although I thought, oh God,
Mm,
now I'm gonna lie down because I've got a book, right?
right.
But now um it's only starting. It's only starting for me to tell more people about it. And you ask me from what do I want people to take away with it?
Hmm.
And the thing what I did not know is, well, this book is about trauma. It's about inner child trauma, and specifically about emotional neglect
Hmm.
as as a child.
Hmm.
Um, I did not know it was a thing because I grew up in a Chinese family. My parents fled communist China. They fled to Hong Kong, and then they found some way somewhere. Some angels actually helped them to get to the Netherlands, and they settled here and they made a living. And I have four siblings, so with five kids,
Hmm.
and we all went to school. We always had some good, a warm bed, a roof.
Hmm.
Went to college and education. So there's a big part of me that says, "What the hell are you whining about?" You
Hmm.
know, no big deal. No big deal. And I kept repeating that for the longest time. No big deal. There's no big deal. What do you mean? So what if your parents were working all the time? So what you went to your graduation and your diplomas and your matches and your school exhibitions and your school rehearsals, or everything you could think of, alone. So what? I mean, there are worse things in this world, and that's completely true. Um, that's true. I mean, there are people far, far worse off, and that's for the longest time. I kept telling myself that because the rational person in me says that's all true, so it's no big deal. But it became a big deal when I had kids, and my kids were really a mirror to me and seeing how they are growing up and how I grew up. The difference was so stark that I found myself, like, on several occasions so jealous of my own kids that I could not bear the sight of them.
Wow.
I was so jealous. There was this one occasion when the oldest had graduation swimming, getting his swimming diploma. And here in the Netherlands, is this whole festive thing where parents, grandparents, family, everybody comes to cheer. There are medals, there are photographers, there's candy, there's cake. It's a big thing. It's like, yeah, graduation from school. So they get the swimming diploma. And I was sitting there next to the pool with my socks off and cold, wet feet on the tiles in this warm, steamy, hot swimming pool. And I was very proud. I mean, he did his best, and he's getting his diploma. But I was sitting there, and just out of the blue, just within a second, I changed completely. I felt myself becoming heavy and angry and tired and jealous and so much envy. It was so much envy. And I was pissed off of the people next to me. I was pissed off at the grandparents at the right of me. I was just pissed off with everybody, and I was so, so jealous. I was sitting there. I was fuming. And then my son swims by and he waves. I couldn't even wave back. I was so pissed off. And only later, when I actually left the swimming pool, I realized that was not the adult me being completely pissed off at that pool, being jealous at my own kid. That was my inner child me, the younger kid in me that also wished that somebody came to see her getting her swimming diploma and having her family and friends cheering for her instead of cycling alone to her swimming graduation where all her friends are surrounded by loving family and you're the only one by yourself and you're also the only one going home alone. So, yeah, I kept telling myself for the longest time, it's no big deal. But my inner child disagrees completely. And those were one of the occasions that she actually let me know so loud that she completely took over. She took over the adult me at that time. And it happened on several occasions. So it was affecting uh me. It was affecting my adult me. It was affecting the relationship that I had with my kids. It was affecting the relationship with my husband and with my friends because sometimes out of the blue I came this pissed off, jealous, angry person for no apparent reason. Yeah, and I still have to deal with that. So is it world is it World War trauma epic scale? No. But on a personal level, it still affects me so bad. Yeah. But I see it now, I recognize it more now. It happens less now because this is what you said, right? I'm drinking tea with my inner inner dark monsters.
Yeah.
Yes, and it helps. Yeah, it does help because I finally realized what what I was missing, and I never knew that you could have like trauma wounds in your body for something that you never knew never existed, for something that you never had. People say, "Oh, you won't miss it because you never had it," but that's not true. I know now it's not true because I haven't had the love and care that I wanted as a kid that I was missing. Um, you can have trauma and you can have burnouts without any reason and somehow live in a state of fear and survival for the longest time. Yeah, it can.
Wow. Given all of this, would you be willing to read a little excerpt from your book for us?
Yes. I'm gonna read the title poem.
Okay.
So my book is called Crybaby, and I don't know if you knew this, but Crybaby was the name that my siblings and my parents called me because I cried a lot when I was a kid. So they called me Crybaby. Crybaby. Crybaby, crybaby, cries and cries all day long, feeling the world wretched, harrowed, full of sorrow. Crybaby, cries and cries, feeling the people alone, afraid, full of ghosts. One smack, two smacks, more smacks to make it stop. Crybaby, cries and cries, won't stop, can't stop, until she slowly hides. Deep, deep, buried, deep.
I love your writing. I love it. And I love your illustrations. Um, I know this book right now is in Amsterdam. If people wanted to explore your work, how can they find you?
You can order it on my website. It's on
Okay.
yingling.nl. And this year I'm actually trying to get it to more independent booksellers and see if I can get stuff out to the US or to other places in the world who might be interested.
Love it. And my last question here for you, and then I'm going to open it up for a Q&A. Um, who are your role models, inspirations, or what are you reading right now?
What I'm reading right now. I'm reading two books. I think I'll start with the one that actually makes me giggle out loud when I'm reading it in public transport. I love this lady's work. It's called Lobster, and she's a poet writer, Holly McNish, and she is English. And sometimes that you actually admire people because they're so smart and thoughtful and witty, and also with a good sense of self-reflection, good dose of those, and sense of humor. This is she. And she has got this brilliant work. I think Lobster is her most recent book. I think that she published. I think she just released one like last week, but I'm still reading this. And seriously, when I actually read this book in the public transport, I have to giggle out loud. It's that good. It's she talks about in the sense of feminism. She talks about there's a whole chapter of why in English people can't say vulva. There's a whole chapter on it. And because if people say anything about it, they would say vagina. But vagina technically is only the part that's on the inner inside, right? It's where the baby comes out, actually. But vulva is the whole female lady's parts. And she goes like, so somehow people have difficulty saying vulva. So she wrote this whole script for people to practice saying not vulva, but she goes like, I'm letting you start slowly and gently. I'll let you say Volvo. So why won't you look under my Volvo hood? She has a mechanics. So ask a mechanic to check whether the Volvo is still running well. So say Volvo checking mechanic. So she has this whole script. There are like pages of it, script with how you can actually practice to say the word. The thing is, why she's so adamant, and I concur, of saying the words for all the parts on your body, saying the correct scientific name of the parts in your body, is because if there's in any case a well, how would you say it, an iffy episode with people touching your body without your permission, and no matter how old or how young you are, especially with younger children, if you can't name it correctly, the authorities can't help. So it's one of the reasons why I'm actually teaching my kid. My youngest is a girl, is just to say vulva and vagina and breast and all these things. And I think it's very important. And she also makes the case from why is there all this slang for the guy's penis, and there's actually no slang for the vulva. She's asking all these questions, and she makes me. So it's not only about ladies' parts in this book, but it's a hell of a read. Yes,
Yes.
it's a hell of a read.
Yes. And I also would suspect that if you're able to say the words, it's that same thing about shame. If there's shame
Yes.
there, you're just bringing some levity into the shame and learning how to get past it.
Yes, that's a good point, because there's, same with my book. I was very reluctant in talking about it or writing it down even. It's there is so much shame in stuff that's actually I would almost say that shame is unnecessary,
Wow.
because I think shame is something like a social trigger. I think it's a social done thing. I always wonder if we would feel the same shame around topics if we would be alone on a tropical island. Would we still feel the same shame about topics, about stuff that happens in your head, in your body, or the stuff that you're thinking? Isn't it a social construct to keep people small, or to behave, whatever that is? Yeah.
Yeah, agreed. On that very deep note, I'm going to open this up for conversations. Let's see if we've got some questions here for you. Okay. I have got, Devron is asking, are there any specific things you do when you feel these feelings arise that help you accept the process or move through the emotion?
That's a good question. First of all, Devron, it took me the longest time to recognize what was happening. Like the first episode that I write about in the book happened at a schoolyard. And I think it took me about 2 years before I actually realized what happened there. And now I see them happening on the same day. I realized that's happening on the same day, and sometimes like 2 or 3 hours afterwards. So I think it's because I was like, it was this like in innovation, you have this process for people who are unconscious and unaware of things. So I'm being aware of it more and more, so I know that it can happen to me. And what I do, if the moment that I realize it, I close my eyes and I take a deep breath, and I just try to steady my breath, and then sometimes I can snap out of it, but not always. So this week I had this terrible, terrible fight, and I with somebody close, and I found myself yelling in the phone. It's not a good thing to yell at people. Definitely not a good thing to yell at a phone conversation, but I caught myself yelling. So I I said stop. It was more to me than to the other person because the other person wasn't yelling. I was the one yelling. So I caught myself yelling and said stop. Stop. I need to stop here because I reached my limit and I need to hang up now because uh so it's sometimes sooner, sometimes too late because I found in this instance it was too late because I already started yelling. And it was such a primitive gut reaction. I don't think you somehow maybe talk to me in 10 years. I can prevent it, but not right now yet. So the only thing that I can do is close my eyes, try to calm myself and breathe. Like 4 counts in, hold it 4 counts, and 4 counts out.
It also sounds like you're setting boundaries for yourself too. When you feel that you're in a place you don't want to be,
Yeah.
being able to stop it like that, that's hard.
I was not proud of yelling, but I was proud that I actually caught myself yelling. Because I go like I don't want to be the person yelling. Whoever
Yeah.
wants to be the person yelling,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's something that I did not control in that moment.
Mm.
Yeah.
Devon is also saying, you mentioned earlier that you moved into activism as an adult because you questioned why you weren't doing something you were passionate about since leaving high school. What do you think prevents more people from pursuing the things that they're passionate about in life? And do you have any advice to help people overcome their fears?
That's a good question, Devron. Um, well, for me, it also starts with becoming aware. I was becoming aware that all the stuff that I was doing were commercially relevant, but it didn't do anything for people or planet. So it didn't contribute to a better, healthier society or to the mental, physical health of the country, the civilization, the world, whatever. And I think I asked myself the question, what if what if I could like pursue those more activist projects that I actually did during college or high school? Um, how would that look like? And I also have to say, I think it's also from a place of privilege, to be honest, because somehow I could ask myself those questions and make a living, right? I mean, if you're so stressed about your finances, you're happy that you have a job. Um, I am privileged and fortunate and very, very, very lucky, I might add, that I actually have clients who refer me and that I have jobs and that I can actually say to on my website, please don't call me if it's only commercially relevant and it doesn't do anybody good because I followed, for instance, I followed a women-centric design course that was such an eye-opener because like you have like dark patterns that you can design in UX for websites and stuff. You can also have like dark patterns and stuff that is not specifically online. I don't know if you know the well, there's this payment thing that we have now here in the Netherlands, and that lets you pay later. So you go to a physical shop, you don't have to pay, but you have to pay in installments. And so you can pay later. So it doesn't cost me nothing out of my pocket at that time. But that's also a dark pattern because it helps people into debt so quickly. Because, of course, the interest on those things is even worse than the credit card interest. So that is also a dark pattern. So the lady who gave that design course, she was asking, is this design for good or for bad? And what are the dark patterns playing here? What is it? So it's also being able to recognize it, and therefore I would say being aware and conscious of what is the choice that you would make, that you want to make, and you don't dare. And it is privilege, but it's also about courage. If you are privileged enough, but you're still not doing it, what is the one thing that you're scared about? I listened to, who is the person who wrote the book Weirdo? Hey, Weirdo, Heather?
Oh, James Victory.
James Victory said, at least I think he said it, most of the people who actually will hold you back are your closest friends and family, because they go like, are you crazy? What are you thinking about? What do you mean you're giving your, I don't know, full-time lawyer job to become an starving artist? It's also afraid of what people might say, probably. And that's the beauty of turning 40 plus. You start caring less and less.
True.
Yes.
Yeah, I can't agree with you more. It is, at least in my experience, it definitely is the people closest to me who have the loudest voice and the biggest objections, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we have any other questions? We're getting close to our hour. Let's just see. I think we are set. Jing, I just want to thank you so much for making time for us today. I'm a huge fan of your work, and I love your book and your illustrations and your courage. I know this was a difficult process, but you're helping so many people with your willingness to be seen and to show what's been inside of you, because you're not the only one and you're giving other people permission.
Yes. Thank you so much, Heather. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Jing.